reach the end of nirvana. So today, with the Korean Dharma brothers and sisters, this is the second day of the Dharma discourse for them. So my Korean Dharma brothers and sisters, politically, of course, you have lots of difficulties in Korea, but spiritually, you have remained very faithful to the teachings, to religion, spirituality, and therefore I would like to greet you all, Korean Dhamma brothers and sisters, despite your political difficulties and also conflict, war that are there in your country. You have kept your faith in the Dharma, so I'd like to thank you. So there are two Koreas, North and South, and so in the North Korea, the matter of using weapons and is quite serious. So all of us, Dharma brothers and sisters, we have the responsibility to bring peace in the Korean Peninsula, and we should pray for that. So you should do your best to resolve the issues. If there's no other ways, then you should then you should resort to prayers. So you are dedicated to these issues. So in this world, true peace, which is beneficial to this life as well as the future. So in Buddhism, you have a very broad view of life, thinking of all sentient beings, to benefit all sentient beings. So with this, you will be able to create peace in our societies. And therefore, with the teaching of the Buddha, you will be able to have this kind of confidence and the determination and courage to work for peace in the world. And so I would like to request my Korean brothers and sisters to work for that. So of course the world is changing, and Tibetans, Mongolians, and also the republics, Buryat and so forth, these republics which are part of the Russian Federation. So we are all, for over 1,000 years, we have been traditional followers of the teaching of the Buddha. So we have this faith in the teaching of the Buddha based on understanding the teaching itself. And this has been the case with us. And so today, there are a lot of changes going on. So at such a time, from spiritual traditions, from the side of the spiritual traditions, we should create peace within our mind. And when you have that, it helps for your longevity as well as physical health. And so this is something obvious that we can see. And so people who are interested in learning about psychology, the workings of mind and emotions, and health care, involved in health care, they find that with peace of mind, you will have good physical health as well as long life. Therefore, so this is what the scientists are saying. They are not necessarily religious or anything. So all of us in the world desire happiness and joy. They do not fall from the sky, nor do they grow from the earth. But so the Buddha has taught a very detailed, in great detail about this psychology. So what disturbs our peace of mind is our arrogance, pride, jealousy, and anger. And so how they are countered is also taught by the Buddha. And therefore, by becoming someone following the Buddha based on your understanding of the teaching of the Buddha through reason, and so you will be able to become someone who will work for peace of mind. So no matter whether you are following a religious belief or not, we all want peace of mind. And there's lots of talk about peace in the world. It has to come from within ourselves, within our mind. Otherwise, the resolutions and conferences and so forth will not bring real, true peace in the world. So today we have problems in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine, I think, someone is saying, and therefore, when you're full of all these negative emotions within yourself, anger, hatred, jealousy, and so forth, there will not be true peace of mind. So if you can maintain a good heart, warm-heartedness, love and compassion, and since anger is the disturbing agent of peace of mind, you should try to maintain or counter this through the antidotes. And so we all want peace of mind, and we all want peace in the world. And therefore, I would like to thank everyone for working towards that, and particularly these Korean brothers and Dharma brothers and sisters. So the truth will prevail eventually, and therefore I have hope for the resolution of these North and South differences. And so let us first take tea. And I also make my prayers for that goal of a peaceful resolution between. So I will give a general introduction to the teaching of the Buddha briefly, and then if we could also do some meditation, I thought it would be good. So all of us together could do an analytical meditation, so followed by single-pointed concentration, the placement meditation. So these are done by using your mind. So if you are feeling hungry, it will be difficult to do this meditation. So first, take the tea and bread. So when you do actual meditation, you should maintain the 7 postures of your body, that 7 Vajrayana postures as they are called. So your legs should be in the Vajra cross-legged posture, or just the normal cross-legged posture. And then your hands should be in the meditation posture or gesture, and your spine should be straight, and leave your mouth and the tongue and teeth naturally, and hold your head not lift up, your face not lift up to the sky or bending too much down, such that your chin is touching your body, but just gazing downwards naturally. And your shoulders should be kept straight naturally, and breathe naturally. So as we're dealing with the teaching of the Buddha, as I said yesterday also, we use reason and logic to explain the teaching, not just do prayers. So, of course, all religious traditions are very good. I respect all of them. But Buddhism and the Indian spiritual traditions have meditation as part of their practice. And so, through meditation, one maintains a relaxed or a state of mind. So usually our mind is rather disturbed. But in meditation, you maintain a peaceful, calm state of mind. So first, your mind would be in a neutral state, and then generate a virtuous state of mind, a positive state of mind. And so the main practices are Bodhichitta, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment, and the view of emptiness. So, to the best of our ability, we should first meditate on Bodhichitta. All sentient beings across the expanse of the space are same in not wanting suffering but wanting happiness. But you, as an individual, is just a single person. But the others are without number, countless, and immeasurable in number. And so we, as followers of the Buddha and someone who knows about how the mind works, and so to the best of our ability, first we should try to develop a peaceful state of mind, a peace of mind within ourselves, and then to others who are of the same fortune to us, we can explain to them. And so to develop peace of mind, first of all, what disturbs this peace of mind is our destructive emotions. And therefore, we should use the counterweighting factors against these negative emotions or the mental afflictions. And of course, this is quite a deep practice. And the Buddha taught the view of no self, whereas the other non-Buddhist traditions of India talk about some kind of a soul which is separate from the body and the mind. Whereas the Buddha has said there is no such a soul or independent self apart from the body and the mind. And Therefore, as so first of all, let us check where this I is. We talk about my body and my mind, but if you are asked, whose body and mind are these, you'll say, it's mine. Where is that me? Where is that I? Where is it? Is it in the head, somewhere amongst the brain, or somewhere at the heart point? If you search like that, of course, you will not find yourself. So even in dreams, we have this notion of an I. But if you closely check it, you will not be able to find that self. So all the Buddhist philosophical traditions assert selflessness. Therefore, where is that self or I? From the beginning with the crown of your head down to the sole of your feet, if you try to find that I that you have a notion of. So let us all meditate on that and search for the self within your mind and the body. Try to look for that self, that I. So without me speaking to you, use your discriminative awareness, this critical mind within yourself, and check where this I is. So, of course, I is not non-existent, because we can talk about my head, my eyes, my hands. But where is it, if you are asked? You will not be able to find it. So, from your side, where is the I? Where is that Korean I that you have a notion of? Is it somewhere on top of your head? In your head? No. But it's not the case that you don't exist. We talk about my body, my mind, and therefore, so there is some kind of a notion or conception that there is a possessor of your body and your mind, but you will not be able to find that. But still, the I is not non-existent. So if it's not existent, you'll not be able to talk about it even. But this I that appears as if it's a solid entity to your mind, that does not exist. And therefore, you will have some kind of a vacuity in your mind that you'll come to experience. So since you'll not be able to point your finger at anything within your body and the mind as being the I, you have analyzed where this I is. And therefore, through that analysis, you have found that there's nothing within your body and the mind, constituent factors, that you can point your finger at as being yourself, your I. And therefore, meditate on that emptiness of the solid self.
Oh yeah.
So I, of course, exist, and then the mind, which is possessed or by this I, and on the basis of that mind, you become a Buddha ultimately. And even the I, or the person of the self, the Buddha, if you search for that identity, you'll not find it. So, I is not non-existent, yet there's nothing you can point your finger at as being that. And therefore, in the teachings, we find mention of the selflessness of persons and phenomena. And when you search for that I, and you see that I does not exist, and that is leading you to the understanding of selflessness of persons. Within the selflessness of persons and phenomena, there are degrees of subtlety, and therefore the Buddha first taught the coarser ideas or conceptions of the selflessness, and then led his disciples to the more subtler aspects of it. And where you come to in the end is this subtle clear light mind, and on the basis of that the tantric practices are done. The profound tantric practices are done on the basis of that clear light mind, the innate subtle, and therefore maintain your mind within this meditation on emptiness or selflessness. So, a person or a being or a self is, the I is designated on the basis of body, speech, and mind. And then within that body, speech, and mind, within the body, speech, and mind, there are the gross ones as well as the subtle ones. So if you analyze the body, so the body, our body is designated based on our head, hands, and the torso, and so forth. But if you try to search for that identity of the body, you'll not be able to find it anywhere. And similarly, it is the case with the mind. Of course, we have feelings and so forth, but nothing whatever can be pinpointed as being the mind. And it is, and then the person is also in the same manner. If you search for the person, as we talk about the my mind, my body, and so forth, where is that I? Nothing can be found when you search for that identity of an I, of a person. So, since people have this notion of an I, that there must be some basis for the I to exist, and some philosophical schools do point to the mental consciousness as being the final identity of the person. But that too cannot be maintained. So, of course, without doing any analysis on the conventional level, we can still talk about my body, speech, and mind, myself, I, and so forth. But in accordance with the conventional existence, without doing any kind of critical analysis of trying to pinpoint the I, you can talk about an I. And similarly, it is the case with the body. So apart from the body of the Buddha, apart from the body of the Buddha and his mind, there's nothing there that we can pinpoint as being the Buddha. And so, through doing the practice, we can talk about the bodhisattvas, Arya beings, and so forth. And so they too cannot be pinpointed as being there within their body and mind and so forth. And so meditate on that lack of final identity of a person. So since we cannot point our finger at anything being the Sangha or the Buddha and so forth, does it mean that they do not exist? No. And therefore what we can conclude is that things and beings exist by way of designation, that they are designated through labels. So apart from that conventionality of being labeled and designated, there's nothing whatsoever that exists. And therefore, in Madhyamaka philosophy, we say that things are merely imputed or designated. And so what that helps is, we do talk about my body, my mind, my hair, my heart, and so forth. So these serve as being, as the stimulus for having this no wrong notion of there being some kind of a solid object. And so that in turn leads us to attachment and anger and so forth. And so when you are able to see that there is nothing whatever, and when you put them into under the lens, check them under the lens of your critical analysis, so what it shows is that though things do exist, but they cannot be found if you closely analyze them and try to search for their identity. And therefore, what this shows is that things are merely designated. And so this is significant in reducing our anger and so forth. And so the understanding of the things being merely designated actually helps us reduce attachment, anger, and so forth, which arise in us because of some kind of a notion of a solid, independent existence in things and beings and so forth. And therefore, this analysis of the self and not being able to find anything as being there independently, but being merely designated, helps us reduce our negative emotions of anger and so forth. And so meditate on that. Selflessness. So from the Buddha down to the smallest insects, of course, conventionally, there is an I in each and every sentient being, but they cannot be found when you analyze and search for that identity. And therefore, we come to the conclusion that things are merely labeled and designated. And therefore, entering the middle way of Master Chandrakirti says, is in verse number 34, if the intrinsic characteristics of things were to arise dependently, things would come to be destroyed by denying it, emptiness and so forth. And then in verse number 35, and then it goes on to say, though things cannot be found, that things still exist by way of convention. So the conventional truth of everyday world should not be subjected to thorough analysis. In the context of suchness, certain reasoning disallows arising from self or from something other, and that same reasoning disallows them on the conventional level too. So by what means then is your arising established? And so, what these lines show is that things do not have any intrinsic independent existence, but they do exist by way of mere convention, designation. So, through the power of name and labels and designation, things exist. And therefore, we can still talk about these negative emotions such as attachment, anger, and so forth, arising on a conventional level, and also the experiencing the paths and grounds. So, we have already talked about there being nothing that you can point your finger at as being a Korean or a Tibetan. So though there is this appearance of a Tibetan or Korean, as if they are existing solidly somewhere. But if you analyze the person, you cannot find the Tibetan or the Korean anywhere. And because of some kind of a notion of a solid existence of a person, what happens is there grows attachment, anger, and so forth. And therefore, these clinging to the self through attachment and also anger, we disturb our mind, and that is reduced through the understanding that things have no independent existence. So nothing whatever is there that you can point your finger at as being me. So human beings and other sentient beings in this world are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. But this grasping at some kind of independent existence is the source of our problems. And also, cherishing oneself over others is a source of problems. It does not have any other good quality but causing disturbance. So, of course, all sentient beings across the space, you know that every one of us are same in not wanting suffering but wanting happiness and joy. So the 7 to 8 billion people on this earth are same In that they do not want suffering but want happiness. And so each of us is part of that 7 to 8 billion population of the world. And therefore, this happiness, the joy and that human beings seek, we should do our best to achieve that by reducing our attachment, anger, and so forth. Whether you are practitioners of religion or not, it's the same thing that we seek, happiness and joy, but not suffering. And so, for practitioners of religion, of course, we should do our best. Though people do not want suffering, they run after the causes of suffering. And as a result of that, we ruin ourselves and others, bring ruin to the self, to oneself and the others. So though yourself and others do not want suffering but want happiness, but others are countless, limitless or infinite, and you are just a single person, and therefore you should determine to bring happiness to others to the best of your ability, that thinking that may all sentient beings have no suffering, may all sentient beings have happiness. So on the one hand, you should reflect on emptiness or selflessness, and on the other hand, have this altruistic attitude. So as long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. So this kind of prayer should be our prayer, so that we determine ourselves, feel determined to work for the elimination of suffering of other sentient beings. And so this kind of prayers should lead us to practice altruism, to work on it from life after life. So meditate on this altruistic attitude of wishing others to have happiness, but all sentient beings to have happiness and not have suffering. Meditate on it. So yesterday we didn't have the time to have question and answer session. So today I wish to take some questions.
디와 당보 질문 1번 좋은 마음으로
So the first question is, social workers are sometimes physically challenged by sickness due to exhaustion. Could you please teach some techniques to spiritual practitioners who wish to serve others effectively without difficulty? So mainly it has to do with your mind. So your body, speech and mind, if you dedicate them for the well-being of others and work for your survival merely for the sake of others, to serve others, so then if you will not have disturbed state of mind or physical sickness. And so if you can have a good heart, warm heart, then that is the main point to practice. That's the best way to go. So that makes a difference, of course. When you have attachment, anger, and so forth, things appear as if they exist from their own side. And accordingly, you also cling to that and then do things. Whereas if you are able to understand that things and beings are merely designated, it's really helpful. So His Holiness is already answering the second question, which says, could you explain whether meditation on emptiness can reduce fear, anxiety, etc. in our mind? And so, of course, it helps, this meditation on emptiness. So things appear as if they have some kind of objective independent existence in and of themselves. And accordingly, when we become attached to that way of appearance of things, then there is attachment and anger and so forth, aversion. Whereas when you meditate on emptiness, what you understand is things cannot have any objective independent existence in and of themselves. And then that will help you to reduce that kind of attachment to solidity in things. And then with the altruistic mind, thinking of others' well-being, you can help reduce this self-cherishing attitude. And so we should combine both the method and the wisdom aspects of the practice. So the Madhyamaka tradition, the way these are explained according to the Madhyamaka tradition is amazing.
두 번째, 공성을 깨치는 것으로서 두려움이 극복이 되는가에 대한 대답까지 하셨습니다. 세 번째, 수행을 한다고 하는데 일상생활에서 그 사람이 변화가 감지되지.
And then number three, some people claim to be practitioners, yet the way they behave and express themselves show no signs of having made any transformation. Moreover, they indulge in immoral deeds in their daily life. What is wrong with them? So this So His Holiness is reading this question. So what's wrong with them? So this shows that they are not able to differentiate between the moral and immoral behaviors, and therefore they indulge in immoral actions.
네 번째, 소지장, 한국에서는 소지장이.
So number four of the two obscuration of mental afflictions, obscuration of knowledge, what is the nature of the later one? So this is quite complicated matter. So there are the Chittamatrans, the minority schools, and also those Madhyamakas who assert some kind of objectivity in things, and then the Madhyamakas who reject any objectivity in things. So there are differences in their explanation of this obscuration to knowledge or cognitive obscuration. And then the obscuration of mental afflictions. This is quite complicated. And number five, could you explain why consciousness arises in sentient beings? So consciousness is not something made by the Buddhas or by our karma, but it is something natural that has the quality of clarity and cognition. And because of these qualities, we have strong experiences of pain and pleasure, and in relation to that, in connection with that, then we have attachment and aversion, etc., which are also strong. And so these grow because of consciousness, which has the quality of clarity and awareness or cognition. And so, with regard to the fundamental verses of the middle way, called wisdom, so Master Nagarjuna, who is renowned as the second Buddha of this teaching of Buddhism, so in the lineage Lama prayer of the stages of the path to enlightenment, so we find mention of Master Nagarjuna as the pioneer of the profound view lineage. So, just to read from the beginning of Madhyamaka Avatara, it says in the language of India, Pranjanam Mula Madhyamaka Karika, in Tibetan, Umatsawa Tsingliurchava Sherab Chichawa, and in English, the fundamental verses of the middle way called wisdom. And then homage to the youth Manjushri, and then I prostrate to the perfect Buddha, the best of all teachers, who taught that which is dependent origination is without cessation, without arising, without annihilation, without permanence, without coming, without going, without distinction, without identity, and peaceful, free from fabrications. And so this is homage, paying homage to the Buddha, who taught the dependent origination, free from the 8 extremes. And he taught it from his own experience, and therefore became the incomparable teacher. So he taught the dependent origination out of his compassion for all sentient beings, from his own experience of having realized this. And then, neither from self nor from another, no from both, no without a cause, does anything whatever, anywhere, arise. So nothing whatever can be posited as arising from itself, from another, from both, or from without a cause. And there are 4 conditions. These are an efficient condition. And similarly, there is an objective condition, immediate condition, dominant condition. There is no 5th condition. The essence of entities does not exist in such things as the conditions. If the entity that is self does not exist, the entity that is the other does not exist. Action does not have condition. There are no conditions without action, nor do any have action. Since in dependence on these there is arising, they are called conditions. As long as those do not arise, why are they not non-conditions? For neither an existent nor a non-existent being is a condition possible. If a thing is non-existent, then what would its condition be the condition? If a thing is already existent, what would a condition do? When phenomena are established neither as existent nor non-existent, nor as both, how could one propose a cause for a thing's existence? In this case, it would make no sense. You have stated emphatically that it is not the case that an existent phenomena does any object at all, has any object at all. So since phenomena are without objects, how could there be an objective condition? Since phenomena are not arisen, cessation is not tenable. Therefore, an immediate condition makes no sense. If something has ceased, how could it be a condition? Since there is no existence of essenceless things, the statement, when this exists, this will arise, and so forth. And so, first chapter done. So I'll just read this text, fundamental verses of the middle way called wisdom. So I have received explanation on this transmission on the explanatory transmission of it from the former Gaden Rinpoche, Gyabji Rizong Rinpoche. He was doing a retreat on a great retreat on Yamantaka, and in between that I received it. Now, chapter 2, examination of motion. Now, where one has gone, one does not go. Where one has not yet gone, one does not go. Apart from where one has gone and where one has not gone, that over which one goes cannot be conceived. Where there is motion, there is going. Since there is motion in that which is being gone over, but neither where one has gone nor where one has not gone, it follows that going is in that which is being gone over. How could be it tenable? How could it be tenable? Tenable for going to be in that which is being gone over. When there is no going, it is not tenable to say that there is going there. For whomever there is going where one goes, the absurd consequence would follow that there could be a path over which one is going without going, but wherever one goes, there is going. If going were where one goes, there would be a twofold going, one by he who goes there, and one in the going there is there. Since it would follow that there would be a twofold going, the goer would be twofold. For without a goer, it is not tenable that anything goes. So if you analyze such things as going and so forth, critically like this, there is lots of contradictions. If without a goer, it is not tenable that there is going, then if there were not going, how could there be a goer? Now, inasmuch as a goer does not go, and nor does not go, non-goer does not go. Apart from the goer and non-goer, what third thing could go? Now, when without going, it is then untenable to call something a goer. How could it be tenable to say that a goer goes? For him, according to whose position a goer goes, the absurd consequence would follow that there could be a goer who does not go, because it is maintained that a goer goes. If a goer were going, there would be absurd consequence of a twofold going, one in virtue of which he is manifest as a goer, and one in virtue of which, having become a goer, he goes. Going does not begin where one has already gone, nor does going begin where one has not yet gone, nor does it begin where one is going. Where then does going begin? Prior to going, beginning of going, there is beginning of going neither where one is going, nor one has gone. How could there be going where one has not yet gone? Since the beginning of going cannot be perceived in any way whatsoever, which one has gone, what over which one is going, and what over which one has not yet to go can be conceived. The goer does not stand, the non-goer does not stand. Apart from the goer and the non-goer, what third thing stands? When, without going, it is not tenable that something is a goer, how could it be tenable that a goer stands? One does not halt where one is going, nor where one has gone, nor where one has not yet gone. Going and starting and halting are similar. That going just is the goer makes no sense, nor does it make sense that they are completely different and so forth. So that completes the second one. I'm sorry, we are not able to catch up. Third chapter, examination of senses. Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, tasting, touching, and mind are the six faculties. Their spheres are the invisible objects, etc., that very seeing does not see itself at all. How can something that cannot see itself see another? The example of fire cannot elucidate seeing. That, along with seeing, has been dealt with through the analysis of gone, the not gone and going. When there is not the slightest seeing, there is no seer. How could it make sense to say that in virtue of seeing it sees? Seeing does not see, non-seeing does not see. Through seeing itself, the analysis of the seer is understood. Without detachment from vision, there is no seer, nor is there seer detached from it. Without a seer, how can there be a seeing or seeing or the seen? From the existence of seeing and seeing, it follows that the four, consciousness, etc., do not exist. Since this is the case, how could such thing as the appropriator exist? Through the explanation of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and the mind, hearer and sound, etc., should not be understood. Should also be understood. Chapter 4. Apart from the cause of form, form cannot be conceived. Apart from form, the cause of form is not apparent. If apart from the cause of form, there are form. Form would absurdly be without a cause, but nowhere is there a thing without a cause. If apart from form there were a cause of form, it would be a cause without an effect. But there are no causes without effects. When form exists, a cause of form is not tenable. When form is non-existent, a cause of form is not tenable. Form itself without a cause is neither possible nor tenable. Therefore, never conceptualize ideas about form. The assertion that the cause and effect are similar makes no sense. The assertion that they are not similar makes no sense. Feelings, discriminations, dispositions, consciousness, all such things should be thought of in every day in the same way as form. When an argument is advanced on the grounds of emptiness, if someone were to offer a reply, any such reply will fail, since it will presuppose exactly what is proven to be proven. When an explanation is made through emptiness, whoever find fault with it will find no fault, since any such criticism will presuppose exactly what is to be proven. So if you do not assert emptiness, whatever analysis you do of things, you are doing so within the notion that things have some kind of objective existence. And therefore, the form and so forth, through the analysis of the understanding of emptiness, is naturally falls apart. Examination of element 5. Prior to characteristic of space, there is not the slightest space. If it existed prior to the characteristic, then it would absurdly exist without a characteristic. A thing without a characteristic has never existed. If nothing lacks of characteristics, what do characteristics characterize? Characteristics do not characterize the uncharacterized, nor do they characterize the characterized. Nor do they characterize anything other than the characterized and the uncharacterized. When there is no characterization, the basis of characteristics make no sense. Since the basis of characteristics make no sense, there is no characteristic either. Therefore, there is no basis of characteristic because there is no characteristic, nor is there any entity other than the basis of characteristic and characteristics. If no entity exists, of what entity would an absence be? Entities and non-entities are mutually exclusive. Who knows entities and non-entities? Therefore, space is neither an entity nor is it a not. not a non-entity. It is neither characterized nor characteristic. The same is true of the other 5 elements. And the fools, those fools who see entities as existent and non-existent, do not see that which is to be seen as specified and so peaceful. And then verse number 6, chapter 6, examination of desire and desirous one. So in these kind of analysis that Master Nagarjuna does, it's something incredible how he analyzes things by using reason. If prior to desire there were a desirous one, without desire, depending on that, desire would exist. Desire would exist when there is a desirous one. Were there no desirous one, moreover, where would desire occur? With respect to the desirous one, whether or not desire exists, the analysis would be the same. Desire and desirous one cannot arise simultaneously. In that case, desire and desirous one would not be mutually dependent. In identity, there is no simultaneity. A thing is not simultaneous with itself. But if there is difference, then how could there be simultaneity? If a single thing were simultaneous, then that could occur without accompaniment, and so forth. Chapter 6 done. Chapter 7, examination of arising and enduring. If arising were produced, it would also have the 3 characteristics. If arising were unproduced, how could it be the characteristic of the unproduced? The 3, arising, etc., cannot function separately as the characteristics of the produced, but how could they be joined in one thing simultaneously? If arising, enduring, and ceasing had characteristics other than those of the produced, there would be an infinite regress. If they do not, they would not be produced. The arising of arising only gives rise to the basic arising. The arising of the basic arising gives rise to the arising of the arising as well. If, as you say, the arising of arising gives rise to the basic arising, how, according to you, does this, not arisen from the basic arising, give rise to that? If, as you say, that which is arisen from basic arising gives rise to the basic arising, how does the basic arising, to which it has not given rise, give rise to it? If this non-arisen could give rise to that, then you will have to accept things in the process of arising giving rise to each other, just as Bodhichitta illuminates itself as well as others. So arising gives rise to itself, to both itself and the other thing. If butter lamp and its place, there is in the butter lamp and its place there is no darkness. What then does a butter lamp illuminate? For illumination is the clearing of darkness. If the arising of butter lamp does not contact darkness, how could that arising butter lamp have cleared the darkness? If without making contact the butter lamp clears darkness, all of the darkness remaining in the world should be cleared by that which is placed there. If the butter lamp illuminates itself and others, darkness should, without a doubt, conceal itself and others. How could this arising, being non-arisen, give rise to itself? And if it is arisen from something arisen, so what verse number 16 in this chapter says, whatever is dependently arisen, that thing is essentially peaceful. Therefore, that which is in the process of arising and arising itself are themselves peaceful. If a non-arisen entity exists anywhere, that entity would have to arise. But if it were non-existent, what could arise? If this arising gives rise to that which is in the process of arising, what arising gives rise to that arising? If another arising gave rise to this one, there would be an infinite regress. If anything arose without arising, then everything could arise in this way. It does not make any sense for an existent or non-existent to arise, as it is presented before. For neither an existent nor non-existent. So when we talk about things changing moment by moment, so of course there's no functioning thing, no compounded thing which is without any moment-to-moment change. An entity has that endured. So it says the arising of an entity in the process of ceasing is not tenable, nor is it tenable that which is not in the process of ceasing is an entity. An entity that has endured does not endure. An entity that has not endured does not endure. That which is in the process of enduring does not endure. That which what none is risen can endure. The endurance of an entity in the process of ceasing is not tenable, nor is it tenable. That which is not in the process of ceasing is an entity, inasmuch as the nature of all entities is always aging and death. Without aging and death, what entities can endure? For enduring to endure through another enduring or through itself makes no sense. So just as a rising cannot arise through itself, or nor through another arising. That which has ceased does not cease. That what has not yet ceased does not cease. Nor does that which is in the process of ceasing, what none arisen can cease. The cessation of an entity that is enduring is not tenable, nor is the cessation of an entity that is not enduring. A state does not make that state itself cease, nor does one state make another state cease, since for an entity is arising. For no entity is arising tenable, for no entity is ceasing tenable. So, since arising, enduring, and ceasing do not exist, there are no produced things. If no produced things exist, how could there unproduced exist? Like a dream, like an illusion, a city of Gandharvas, so have arising, enduring, and ceasing been explained. Chapter 8, examination of the agent and action. That which is an agent does not perform an existent action, nor does that which is not an agent perform some non-existent action. That which is an agent has no activity. There would then be action without an agent. That which is an action has no activity. There would also be agent without action. If that which is not an agent were to perform that which is not an action, then the action would be without a cause, and the agent would be without a cause. Without a cause, and if the effect and the cause would not be possible. Without this action, agent and instrument would not be possible. If such things as action were not possible, the virtuous and vicious would not be possible. If there were neither the virtuous nor the vicious, effects could not arise from them. If there were no effects, liberation and paths to higher realms would not be possible. The absurd consequence would follow that all actions would be pointless. That which is and is not an agent does not perform that which is and is not an action. The same thing cannot both be and not be so, since they are contradictory. How could it be like that? That which is an agent does not perform that which is not an action, nor does that which is not perform that which is not perform that which is. From this, all of those errors would follow. That which is an agent with activity does not perform that which is not, or that which is and is not an action. We have already presented the arguments and so forth. Chapter 8 at the end says, agents depends upon actions. Actions depend on the agent as well. Apart from dependent arising, one cannot see any cause for their existence. One should understand appropriation in the same way, following the elimination of agent and action through action and agent. All remaining things should be understood. Chapter 9, examination of the prior entity. Since such things as seeing, hearing, and such things as feeling also exist, in virtue of them, he who has them also exists prior to them some way. If there were no existent thing, how could such things as seeing also occur? Therefore, prior to this, There must be an enduring thing. If something existed prior to such things as seeing, hearing, feeling, and feeling, how could it be designated? If it can endure without such things as seeing, then without a doubt they also can exist without it. But what is someone by what is someone disclosed? By whom is someone disclosed? Without something, how can someone exist? Without someone, how can something exist? Nothing exists prior to all of such things as seeing. Another one of such things as seeing discloses another at another time. If it does not exist prior to all of such things as seeing, how could it exist prior to each of such things as seeing? If the seer itself is the hearer itself and the feeler, then for it to exist prior to each of these would make no sense, and so forth. Verse, chapter 10, examination of fire and fuel. If fuel were fire, agent and object would be one. If fire were different from fuel, then it could arise without fuel. It would be forever a flame. Ignition would occur without a cause. Effort regarding it would be pointless. In that case, it would also be without any action, since it would not depend on another. Ignition would be without a cause. If it were eternally in flames, effort regarding it would be pointless. So, if one thought that which is burning is the fuel, if it is just this, by what is this fuel being burned? Because of difference, they do not touch. If they do not touch, it would be. It will not be burned. So verse number 6, if just as a man touches a woman and a woman touches a man, so if fire were different from fuel, fire and fuel would have to be suited to touch. And if fire and fuel preclude each other, then although fire is different from fuel, it still must be asserted that they touch. If fire exists independent of fuel, and fuel exists independent of fire, depending on what do fire and fuel exist, which one exists first? If fire exists independent of fuel, it would be the establishment of an established fire, and the fuel would also exist without there being any fire. If an entity that depends on another exists in dependence on that on which it depends, it exists in dependence on what? If the entity that exists through dependence does not exist, how could it depend? However, if you say that the existence depends, that dependence makes no sense. Fire is not dependent on fuel. Fire is not dependent not independent of fuel. Fuel is not dependent on fire. Fuel is not independent of fire. Fire does not come from something else, nor is fire even in fuel. Moreover, everything else concerning fuel is presented through where one has gone, where one has not gone, and where one goes. Fuel is itself not fire. Fire is nothing in nothing other than fuel. Fire does not possess fuel. Fuel is not in fire, nor vice versa. No, through the discussion of fire and fuel, the order of self and appropriation, together with pot and cloth, all without remainder have been explained. I do not think that those who teach that the self and the entities can be identical or different understand the meaning of the doctrine. So that is the end of chapter 10, examination of fire and fuel. And next, when asked if the beginning is known, the great sage said no. Cyclic existence is without origin or terminus, so there is no beginning or end. For that which has neither origin nor terminus, how could there be a middle? Therefore, it is not tenable that it is ordered as prior, posterior, or simultaneous. If birth came first and then aging and death, then birth would be ageless and deathless one would be born. If birth were to come after and aging and death first, how could there be a causeless aging and death without birth? For birth, aging, and death to be simultaneous makes no sense. That which is being born would be dying, and both would be without a cause. Since the framework of sequence and simultaneity does not make sense for birth, aging, and death, why do you fabricate them? Not only in cyclic existence without a prior limit, neither cause and effect, nor characteristics and characterized, nor feeling and feeler, whatever there is. All entities are without prior limit. In chapter 12, some maintain that suffering is self-created. Some maintain that it is created by another. Others that it is created by both, and that it arises without a cause. Such creation is impossible. If suffering were created by itself, then it would not arise dependently, for those aggregates arise in dependence on these aggregates. If those were different from these, or if these were different from those, suffering could be created by another. These would be created by those others. If suffering were caused by a person himself, then who is that self who created suffering? That person, apart from suffering. If suffering arose from another person, then that other one would create the suffering. What could that which come to fruition be apart from the suffering? If another person gave rise to suffering, who would that other person be who created it and gave that suffering other than suffering? What it does not exist as self-created. When it does not exist as self-created, how could suffering be created by another? Any suffering created by another must have been self-created. No suffering is self-created. Nothing creates itself. If another is not self-created, how could suffering be created by another? If suffering were created by each, suffering could be created by both, not created by self and by other, or by other. How could uncaused suffering occur? Not only does suffering not exist in any of the fourfold ways, no external entity exists in any of the four ways. Next. Chapter 13, the Transcendent Lord has said that whatever is deceptive is false. All compounded phenomena are deceptive, therefore they are all false. If whatever is deceptive phenomena is false, then what is deceived? What deceives? Saying that, the Transcendent Lord perfectly presents emptiness. All entities are natureless. Since transformation into something else is perceived, all entities lack naturalness, naturelessness, because all entities have an emptiness. If they are natureless, what transforms? If there were nature, how could there be transformation? A thing itself is without transformation, nor is transformation in something else, because a young man does not age, and because an aged man does not age either. If a thing itself transformed, milk itself would become a yogurt, but what other than milk could become an entity is yogurt? So the victorious one have said that emptiness is the elimination of all views. Anyone for whom emptiness is a view is incorrigible. So that finishes chapter 13. Okay, I'll go over to 14, examination of conduct. Then seeing, the seen, seeing, and the seer. These three, neither pairwise nor altogether, do not exist in contact with each other. Similarly, desire, the desirous, the desired, and the remaining afflictions, and the remaining faculties should be regarded in this threefold way, since different things contact one another. But in such things as seeing, there is no difference. They cannot make contact. Not only with respect to such things as seen. Is there no such difference? When one thing and another are simultaneous, it is also not tenable that there is difference. One different thing depends on another for its difference. Without a different thing, another would not be different. It is not untenable for that which depends on something else to be different from it. If one different thing were different from another, without another, a thing could be different. But without that other, that different thing does not exist. Therefore, this is not the case. Difference is not a different thing, nor is it in a non-different thing. If difference does not exist, neither difference nor identity exists. Nothing contacts itself, nor does one different thing contact another. Neither that which is being contacted, nor the contact, nor the contactor exists. Shall I leave it here? So His Holiness has been reminded of giving during the Bodhichitta ceremony. So today is the second day of the teaching. So we have done a brief meditation on emptiness, and then with regard to developing Bodhichitta, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment, there are two traditions. One is called the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, which is very good, but from my experience, the other tradition, which is equaling and exchanging self and others, is very powerful technique for developing bodhicitta. And so the most important teaching comes from Bodhisattvacharya Avatara. Unless you are able to switch your joy and happiness with the suffering of others, leave alone reaching Buddhahood, even in samsara, you will not have happiness. And which sensible person would feel despair or discouraged to ride the horse of bodhicitta, which leads one from joyful state to joyful state without despair? And so, if you remain selfish, you will not even fulfill your own goal. Whereas if you dedicate yourself for the benefit of others, to serve others, that would also fulfill your own goal. So, Bodhisattvacharya Avatara says, all joy and happiness in the world comes from wishing others to be happy. All suffering and misery comes from wishing oneself to be happy. What need is there to say more? Look at the difference between the Buddha who have become enlightened and ours, where we are. And therefore, he says, unless you exchange your joy and happiness with others, there's live alone reaching Buddhahood, and so forth. So all of us sentient beings are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So we should, if we think of and aspire to bring happiness to others and to also eliminate suffering of others, overcome suffering of others, of course that itself, the bodhicitta, helps to purify our negativities and helps to gain and accrue positive energies or merit and wisdom. And so this equaling and exchanging self and others, the bodhicitta, which prioritizes others' well-being over one's own, gives a very relaxed state of mind. From my own experience, I do reflect on bodhicitta based on the equaling and exchanging self and others, and also I meditate on bodhicitta, the view of emptiness. And so my Dharma friends you should also please make these two your main practice. So if you are able to make these two principles your daily practice in this life, you will be able to create the cause for happiness and joy in this life. And personally, you will also feel at ease with yourself. And then, as long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of transmigrators. You will make that a true practice. So, having met with the teaching of the Buddha, and since we have the opportunity to practice equaling, exchanging self and others, this bodhicitta, through this tradition, you'll be able to create and complete the courses of enlightenment, Buddhahood, quickly by treading the path along the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and then eventually reaching the Buddha state of Buddhahood. So through these practice of bodhicitta, and you are actually building the foundation stones, laying the foundation for the path and the grounds and the ultimate state of Buddhahood. So have this courage and determination to reach that goal and follow the path systematically. So as long as space endures, you will dedicate yourself for the well-being of all other sentient beings, all sentient beings. And this makes your life a worthy one. It serves the purpose of being born as a human being in this life. So I'll do the Bodhichitta ceremony. So we have the Buddha statue right before us. And so imagine the Buddha in person, in here, surrounded by the 8 Bodhisattva close disciples. So as followers of the Nalanda Buddhist Sanskrit tradition, imagine also in the space before us, around the Buddha, Master Nagarjuna and so forth, all these Nalanda masters. I am a follower of Master Nagarjuna. Sometimes I even think that when Master Nagarjuna was living, amongst his many disciples, such as Chandrakirti and so forth, I must have been there somewhere at the end of the row. And so I consider myself a student of Master Nagarjuna, and we are students of Master Nagarjuna. So at this kind of a very critical time, for us as individuals, this kind of opportunity has never arisen before. It's as if the situation is like that for us. And therefore, we should make the determination to practice well Bodhichitta and the 6 perfections, and then add on top of these the tantric practice, So this coarse aspect of the mind is not going to become a Buddha's mind as such, but by using the subtle clear-light mind that goes to all the way to Buddhahood. And therefore, by following the Buddha, Master Nagarjuna, and so forth, and particularly by using the subtle mind, the subtlest one being the clear light or mind, which becomes manifest after the dissolution of all the coarser layers of the mind, or down to those three visions of whitish appearance, reddish increase, and blackish near attainment. So all of these dissolve, and therefore the clear light mind becomes a manifest, and we should use that in our meditation to fulfill the goal of reaching enlightenment, and by using the teaching, and never feel discouraged and demoralized, and always have this courage and determination to carry on with the practice of Bodhichitta. Now, so His Holiness just asking if he had done here the ceremony for Bodhichitta. So, with Buddha, Shakyamuni, surrounded by the 6 ornaments and 2 sublime masters, such as Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Asanga, Vasubandhu, Dignaga Dhammakirti, Shakyaprabha, and Gunaprabha, and also Avalokiteshvara. And so in Lhasa, we used to have Lokeshwara statue of Avalokiteshvara, and here in India, I have Bodhisangpo, another form or aspect of Avalokiteshvara. So I am serving like his caretaker in my room, residence. And so every morning when I get up and see him, I have feeling that the Avalokiteshvara is right there. So whatever I have done so far, I feel that I have made this human life a worthy one. So you can think like this: I'm here as a Buddhist monk who has come from Amdo region of Tibet, and on my head you can imagine Avalokiteshvara. And then with the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara in particular on my crown, imagine that you are, please follow this ceremony for Bodhichitta. So whether you were born in Tibet or you are following the Buddhism that has spread in Tibet, like the Korean Lama brothers and sisters here, so you have a special connection with Avalokiteshvara, and you have the blessings of Avalokiteshvara. And so let us say these lines of taking refuge and bodhicitta for generating bodhicitta. So imagine Avalokiteshvara on my crown, and imagine that through your practice of bodhicitta, which is brought about through the practice of love, loving kindness and compassion, that you will ultimately transform yourself into Avalokiteshvara. And say this: I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Community until I'm enlightened. Through the two collections gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly until I attain enlightenment. Through the two collections gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly until I attain enlightenment. Through the two collections of merit and wisdom gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh, yeah.
So in this life, we have obtained this human body. And not only that, we have met with the entire teaching of the Buddha, the basic vehicle and the Mahayana, and have the opportunity to study, reflect, and also develop experience through meditation on it. I will do my best, of course, and you should also follow the instructions of my instructions and make that determination to do your best to practice bodhicitta. And so with this, we are done with the bodhicitta ceremony. Mandala offering, as Thanksgiving mandala offering. Mandala kamniyataya. So, as already said, so imagine from the Avalokiteshvara on my crown, imagine a duplicate of Avalokiteshvara shoots forth and comes on your crown and dissolves into you. And of course, the six-syllable mantra, recitation of the six-syllable mantra of Avalokiteshvara, Om Mani Padme Hum, is important, but the most important thing is to develop and cultivate this bodhicitta, as it is taught in Bodhisattvacharya Avatara. If you reflect on the bodhicitta by using the text like Bodhisattvacharya Avatara, and also combine it with the emptiness, view of emptiness, then you will be able to make it practical to reach Buddhahood. Without the understanding of emptiness, your aspiration to become a Buddha through the practice of bodhicitta would be mere aspiration. And therefore, to make it practical, you should combine it with the view of emptiness, the understanding of emptiness, so that you are able to reach that goal without leaving it as a mere